June 25, 2009, the morning sun filtered through the windows of a Holmby Hills mansion, illuminating what would become the most tragic day in music history. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, had spent another sleepless night, his mind racing with choreography and the enormous pressure of his upcoming This Is It concerts. At 50, Michael was preparing for his ultimate comeback. After years of controversy, he was determined to prove he was still the greatest entertainer alive. But behind the sequined glove and moonwalks, a man was struggling with insomnia, chronic pain, and the weight of perfection. This wasn't just another day. The This Is It tour represented his chance to reclaim his throne and show his children the magic that had captivated the world. What he didn't know was that this June morning would be his last, ending not on a stage under spotlights, but in a bedroom where silence would replace the music forever. The morning that hummed melodies, 6:30 a.m. Michael was already awake, having barely slept 3 hours. He moved through his mansion like a ghost, humming fragments of Earth Song while examining stage mock-ups scattered throughout his living room. His home had been transformed into a rehearsal space, with lighting equipment, sound systems, and costume sketches covering every surface. Dr. Conrad Murray, his personal physician, found Michael in the kitchen, wearing a surgical mask and moving with the restless energy of someone whose mind never stops. "Did you sleep at all?" Murray asked. Michael shook his head, pointing to the elaborate stage designs. "Sleep is for people who aren't changing the world," he replied with a tired smile. Michael spent the morning reviewing every detail of his upcoming concerts. He studied video footage from recent rehearsals, making notes about lighting cues and costume changes. His perfectionism was legendary. Every spin, every vocal run, every moment had to be flawless. This Is It wasn't just a tour name, it was his philosophy. Around 8 a.m. his children, Paris, Prince and Blanket, joined him for breakfast. Michael's demeanor immediately softened. He removed his mask and became simply Daddy, helping Paris with her cereal and listening to Prince talk about his latest video game achievements. These moments with his children were his sanctuary from the pressures of being Michael Jackson. "Are you excited about your shows, Daddy?" Paris asked. Michael's eyes lit up. "Very excited, baby. Daddy's going to dance for the whole world, and you'll be watching from the best seats." He demonstrated a quick moonwalk in the kitchen, making his children giggle. It was the last time they would see their father's magic up close. The morning was filled with phone calls from managers, choreographers, and production teams. Michael took each call seriously, discussing everything from pyrotechnics to merchandise. He was completely invested in every aspect of the show, determined to create something unprecedented. "I want people to leave feeling like they've witnessed something impossible," he told his creative director. "What strikes you about Michael's dedication? Inspiring or concerning?" His relentless pursuit of perfection had created some of the greatest performances in history, but it had also consumed him physically and mentally. Dr. Murray observed Michael's increasing agitation as the day progressed. The singer was pacing more frequently, his speech was rapid, and he seemed unable to sit still for more than a few minutes. The pressure of the upcoming concerts, combined with his chronic insomnia, was taking a visible toll on the man who had spent decades making the impossible look effortless. By 10 a.m., Michael was already asking about sleep medication. "I need to rest, Conrad," he said. "I can't perform like this. My body needs sleep." It was a conversation that would be repeated throughout the day, each time with increasing desperation from a man who had forgotten how to turn off his mind. When rehearsals became prayers, 11 a.m. brought the arrival of Michael's choreographer and several dancers for a private rehearsal session in his home studio. Despite his exhaustion, Michael transformed the moment he heard the opening beats of Billie Jean. His body, which had seemed frail during breakfast, suddenly moved with the precision and power that had made him a legend. The rehearsal lasted 2 hours, with Michael running through choreography for several songs. He was particularly focused on Earth Song, wanting the performance to be a powerful environmental message. "This isn't just entertainment," he told his dancers. "We're trying to wake people up, to make them care about what we're doing to our planet." Michael's attention to detail was extraordinary. He corrected minor timing issues that others couldn't even detect, adjusted lighting angles by mere degrees, and insisted on running sequences repeatedly until they achieved what he called perfection plus. His dancers were amazed by his energy, but close observers noted the strain in his voice and the way he paused frequently to catch his breath. During a break, Michael sat alone at his piano, playing softly and humming new melodies. Music was his language for processing emotions, and today he seemed to be composing something that sounded like a lullaby. When asked about it, he simply said, "Something for my children, something they can remember me by." The most poignant moment came when Michael practiced his final bow for "This Is It." He stood center stage in his home rehearsal space, arms outstretched, head tilted back, as if absorbing the love of an imaginary audience. "Thank you," he whispered to the empty room. "Thank you for letting me share this with you." It was as if he knew he was saying goodbye. Dr. Murray watched from the sidelines, growing increasingly concerned about Michael's physical state. The singer was pushing himself beyond normal limits, sweating profusely despite the air conditioning and occasionally gripping his chest. When Murray suggested a break, Michael waved him off. "Artists don't take breaks when they're creating magic," he said. The rehearsal ended with Michael collapsing into a chair, completely drained but smiling. "Did you see that?" he asked his team. "Did you see how the music just took over? That's what the audience will feel. They'll forget everything else exists except the music." His passion was undimmed, but his body was clearly struggling to keep up with his artistic vision. As the dancers left, Michael remained in the studio, staring at a mirror that had reflected countless hours of practice. "One more time," he whispered to himself, beginning the opening moves of Smooth Criminal. But halfway through he stopped, looked at his reflection and said quietly, "That's enough for today, Michael. Tomorrow will be perfect." The weight of dreams deferred. 2 p.m. found Michael in his bedroom, finally attempting to rest after the morning's rehearsals. But sleep wouldn't come. His mind was racing with details about the upcoming concerts, concerns about his health, and the overwhelming responsibility he felt toward his fans who had purchased tickets, expecting to see the Michael Jackson they remembered. Dr. Murray entered to find Michael pacing by his bedroom window, still wearing his rehearsal clothes. "I can't turn it off, Conrad," Michael said. "My brain won't stop. I keep thinking about the show, about my children, about everything I still need to accomplish." The exhaustion in his voice was palpable. Michael had been struggling with insomnia for years, but the pressure of "this is it" had made it worse. He would lie awake for hours, visualizing performances, worried about disappointing fans who were expecting the impossible. "They want the Michael Jackson from Thriller," he confided to Murray. "But I'm 50 now. How do I give them that magic when my body feels like it's falling apart?" The conversation turned to Michael's fears about the tour. Despite his public confidence, privately he was terrified of failure. "What if I can't hit the high notes? What if I stumble during a dance move? What if they see that I'm not who I used to be?" These vulnerabilities, hidden from the world, were eating away at him. Murray tried to reassure him, but Michael's anxiety was deep-rooted. He pulled out reviews from recent rehearsals, pointing to criticism about his weight loss and energy levels. "They're already saying I'm too thin, too weak. How can I prove them wrong if I can't even sleep?" The pressure was becoming unbearable. Michael showed Murray letters from fans around the world, expressing their excitement about the concerts. "These people are depending on me," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "Children who've never seen me perform, parents who want to share their memories with their kids. I can't let them down." The weight of others' expectations had become his heaviest burden. Do you think the pressure to meet impossible expectations can literally be deadly? Michael was carrying the hopes and dreams of millions of fans, along with his own need to prove he was still the king of pop, creating a psychological weight that his body couldn't sustain. Around 3 p.m., Michael made several phone calls to family members and close friends. To his mother Catherine, he spoke about the children and his hopes for the future. To his sister Janet, he expressed both excitement and nervousness about the comeback. Each conversation revealed a man trying to balance his artistic ambitions with his human limitations. The most telling moment came when Michael video called his children, who were at a friend's house. Seeing their faces on the screen, he smiled genuinely for the first time all day. "Daddy loves you so much," he told them. "When you come to my concerts, you'll see why Daddy has to work so hard. I'm doing this for you, for your future." It was a father's love expressed through the language of performance and sacrifice. As afternoon turned to evening, Michael's requests for sleep medication became more frequent. "I need to rest, Conrad. Tomorrow I have to be perfect again. Please help me sleep." The desperation in his voice reflected a man who had pushed his body and mind beyond their natural limits, seeking chemical help for what had become an impossible situation. The silence that replaced music, 10:40 p.m. Dr. Murray administered the final dose of propofol, the powerful anesthetic that Michael had come to depend on for sleep. "This will help you rest," Murray said, not knowing these would be among the last words Michael would hear. The king of pop, who had spent the day preparing to conquer the world once more, finally closed his eyes. For about an hour, Michael slept peacefully. Security cameras showed him lying still in his bed, finally free from the anxiety and pressure that had consumed him. It was the first genuine rest he had gotten in days, but it would be his last rest of any kind. Around 12 a.m., Michael's breathing became irregular. Dr. Murray, who had left the room to make phone calls, didn't notice the changes in his patient's condition. The propofol, combined with other medications in Michael's system, was having a fatal effect on his already weakened body. By 12:20 a.m., Michael had stopped breathing. When Dr. Murray returned to check on him, he found the king of pop unresponsive. Panic set in as Murray attempted CPR while frantically calling for help. The man who had moonwalked into millions of hearts was slipping away in the silence of a bedroom. The 911 call came at 12:22 a.m. "We have a gentleman here that needs help and he's not breathing," Murray reported, though he didn't initially identify the patient as Michael Jackson. Paramedics arrived to find one of the world's most famous men unconscious, his body finally succumbing to years of physical and emotional strain. As paramedics worked to revive him, Michael's mansion filled with frantic activity. Staff members, family friends, and security personnel gathered, all hoping for a miracle. But the man who had spent his life creating impossible moments couldn't create one more for himself. At 2:26 p.m. on June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson was pronounced dead at Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center. The official cause would later be determined as acute propofol intoxication, but the real cause was the accumulation of decades of pressure, perfectionism, and the impossible burden of being the king of pop. The last image security cameras captured was of Michael in his rehearsal studio just hours before, practicing his final bow with arms outstretched, as if he was saying goodbye to an audience that existed beyond the physical world. The king of pop had taken his final bow, but the music would echo forever. When the world stopped dancing, the announcement of Michael Jackson's death sent shockwaves around the globe that were felt within minutes. Social media platforms crashed under the weight of millions of people sharing their disbelief. News anchors struggled to maintain composure while delivering the impossible news. The king of pop was gone. In Times Square, crowds gathered around giant screens, many people crying openly as they watched news coverage. Street performers began impromptu tributes, moonwalking and singing Michael's songs, while strangers hugged each other in shared grief. The spontaneous outpouring of emotion demonstrated the universal impact of Michael's music. Radio stations worldwide immediately switched to non-stop Michael Jackson tributes. Billie Jean, Beat It, and Thriller played continuously as DJs shared their favorite memories, and fans called in with stories of how Michael's music had touched their lives. Many stations reported their highest listenership numbers in years. Outside Michael's mansion, fans began arriving within hours, creating an impromptu memorial with flowers, photos, and handwritten notes. The gates were covered with messages of love, gratitude, and disbelief. "Thank you for the music," read one sign. "You taught us to believe in magic," read another. The impact extended far beyond entertainment. The stock market saw unusual trading as Michael Jackson-related stocks fluctuated wildly. His music sales skyrocketed, with digital downloads increasing by over 3,000% in the first hours after the announcement. Record stores that still existed saw lines of people wanting to purchase physical copies of his albums. International tributes poured in from world leaders, fellow musicians, and millions of ordinary fans. Paul McCartney, Diana Ross, and countless other artists shared memories of Michael's talent and kindness. Even those who had been critical of him in recent years acknowledged the undeniable impact he had made on music and culture. The most heartbreaking tributes came from children around the world who filmed themselves attempting Michael's dance moves. These innocent displays of admiration showed how Michael's artistry had transcended generations, inspiring young people who had never seen him perform live but had inherited his magic through video and music. Have you ever experienced a moment when the death of someone you never met personally felt like losing a family member? Michael's passing created that kind of universal grief, proving that great artists become part of our emotional DNA. His children, Paris, Prince, and Blanket, became the focus of worldwide sympathy and protection. Fans understood that Michael's greatest legacy wasn't his music or his fame, but the 3 young lives he had loved so deeply. Messages of support for his family poured in from every corner of the globe. Within 24 hours, memorial services were being planned in multiple cities. The Apollo Theater in Harlem, where young Michael had first performed with the Jackson 5, became a pilgrimage site. Fans traveled from around the world to pay their respects at places that had been meaningful in Michael's life and career. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Michael Jackson, who had spent his final day worried about whether he could still captivate audiences, had managed to unite the entire world in a way that no living performer could. His death proved what his life had demonstrated, that music is the universal language, and Michael had been its most fluent speaker. June 25, 2009, marked not just the end of Michael Jackson's life, but the end of an era in entertainment. The boy who had started performing at age 5, who had moonwalked into history, who had broken down racial barriers and redefined what it meant to be a global superstar, had taken his final bow in the most tragic way possible. Michael's last day revealed the devastating cost of perfection and the impossible burden of living up to legendary status. His relentless pursuit of artistic excellence, which had given the world some of its greatest music and performances, had also consumed him physically and mentally. The man who could make millions of people feel joy struggled to find peace within himself. The irony of his final day is heartbreaking. While preparing for what he called his greatest comeback, Michael was actually saying goodbye. His rehearsals became his final performances. His conversations with his children became his last expressions of paternal love, and his quest for sleep became his eternal rest. His death exposed the dark side of fame and the pressure that comes with being considered the greatest entertainer who ever lived. Michael had spent decades trying to give audiences experiences that transcended reality, but in the end, reality, in the form of physical and emotional exhaustion, caught up with him. The global reaction to his passing proved what Michael had always believed, that music has the power to unite humanity. In death, he achieved something that had eluded him in his final years: universal love and appreciation without qualification or controversy. The world mourned not just Michael Jackson the superstar, but Michael the father, the dreamer, the child who never stopped believing in magic. His legacy extends far beyond his musical achievements. Michael showed that entertainment could be art, that performances could be spiritual experiences, and that a single person's creativity could touch billions of lives. He proved that barriers of race, language, and culture could be broken down by rhythm and melody. The This Is It concerts never happened as planned, but in a way, Michael's final day was his ultimate performance. It was a day that revealed his humanity, his vulnerabilities, and his unwavering dedication to his art and his children. He left the stage of life the same way he had entered it, giving everything he had to the music and the people who loved it. Today, more than a decade later, Michael Jackson's influence continues to grow. New generations discover his music, learn his dance moves, and feel the magic that he created. His 3 children have grown up knowing they are the offspring of a legend, but more importantly, they remember him as a loving father who sang them lullabies and taught them to see wonder in the world. Michael Jackson may have taken his final moonwalk on June 25, 2009, but his music, his innovation, and his spirit continue to dance in the hearts of millions around the world. The king of pop had died, but the kingdom he built, a realm where music reigns supreme and everyone is invited to dance, remains eternal. His last day reminds us that behind every superhuman performance is a human being, and that the price of bringing magic to others can sometimes be the sacrifice of one's own peace. Michael Jackson gave everything to his art and his audience, and while we lost him far too soon, we gained something immortal, the knowledge that one person's creativity can change the world forever.